Hi guys, my name is Chloe, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 books of 2022. So I finally managed to sit down and film this video. I was quite ill over Christmas and wasn't able to do much at all, so if I still feel a bit sniffly and congested, it's because I'm still recovering, but I really want to get this video filmed so I can get it out to you guys as soon as possible. Yeah, so I've got my top 10 books of the year. It was quite an easy list to make this year. Some of them I knew were going to be on there as soon as I read them. Others sort of like creeps in just as I was making this list. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about these books and share my list with you. So the first book on this list is one that I listened to on audio, so I don't have a physical copy, and that is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. Now, I was really surprised that this one ended up in my list because I also read the sequel this year, The Bone Shard Emperor, I think it's The Bone Shard Emperor. Possibly, and that one was a massive disappointment. That would be one of my worst books of the year, well, one of the most disappointing books that I've probably read this year, just because it was such a letdown. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that one, we're here to talk about The Bone Shard Daughter, and this one was just so wonderful. It was so different to any fantasy book that I'd read before. It was so compelling. I engaged with most of the POVs in this book because it is a multi-POV story. But yeah, I was just so intrigued from the get-go. So in this book we are in a world where the emperor can make bone constructs from the bone shards that he harvests from the population, and there are rules which states that you have to donate them and stuff. And also the islands are starting to drown, so there's this big crisis that's happening. And for the most part, like I said, we follow a few different people, but we follow Lynn, who is the emperor's daughter, and she wants to learn her father's magic and also uncover her past, because there are some things that are unfamiliar to her and cloudy, and she sort of needs to unravel that. And yeah, this book was such a good time. This one didn't quite get 5 stars, it got a 4.5, but I had such a good time reading this book, and Jovis and Neffy were great, and yeah, I would definitely reread it, so that's why it's on the list. The next book on this list, book 9, is going to be Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is another one I listened to on audio, and this audiobook was absolutely amazing. The narrator was incredible, and this one was really good. It was just a good fun time. It was a sci-fi, and I don't read many sci-fis, so that might have also boosted my enjoyment of this book because it was something different. But yeah, in this book we're basically following a guy, I've completely forgotten his name, who wakes up on this spaceship or space station, and he has no memory of who he is, let alone why he's there and why his team was sent into space. So he basically has to unravel who he is as a person, what his team was like, what they were doing, why they're in space in order to save the Earth. So lots of pressure, but yeah, this one again was such a good time. I loved the narration in this book, not just from the narrator of the audiobook, but just the narrative of the writing. It was so sarcastic and witty and quite funny, considering it was quite dark in places and that there were really high stakes. And yeah, this one was also just a really good time, and I'm probably going to listen to it again, so also why it's on this list. So that's the last of the audiobooks. The rest of them were books that I read physically, and so the 8th book is going to be Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I also read Vengeful this year and really enjoyed it, just not quite as much as book 1. And yeah, this one I just had such a good time with, although I have such a good time with all of V.E. Schwab's work, although I did prefer this one to Gallant, which I also read this year as well. But yeah, in this one we are basically just following Victor and Eli whilst they're at university and after university, whilst they research how to become extraordinaries, so people with superpowers, and they basically find out that the way to do this is to die and then come back to life, and then you are gifted certain powers. And yeah, it was just really good. We follow them when they're head to head with their powers, but also get the flashbacks to the past, and it was really great. And yeah, there were some found family moments this as well later in the book, and yeah, overall just a really good time. And I've said that a lot, but these are the best books of the year and the ones that I had the most fun reading, so why not? Now, I was really surprised that this book, the next book, also ended up on this list as well, because it is an historical fiction. And this one is going to be Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen by Alison Weir, in the 7th spot. So this one is the 3rd book in the 6 Tudor Queen series, and we are following Jane Seymour throughout her life, how she meets Henry, her life with Henry leading up to her eventual death in the end. And this one, whilst I don't necessarily think it's my favourite, I think that one might still be book 2 Anne Boleyn. I think this one is the best, because it wraps up the story so nicely from books 1 to 3. It kind of stands as its own sort of trilogy, even though there are 6 books in this series for each of the 6 queens. It was just so nice following Jane, who is more of a, well, she's more of an ordinary citizen. She's not royal at all, which was a nice change based on the previous 2 books that we've got to read, and it was just so lovely to read from her point of view, recapping on the events of the 1st book and then the 2nd book, all from different POV again, which was incredible. And yeah, I've just had a really great time reading this series, so I had to get one of them on here, and that one is going to be Jane Seymour. The 6th book on this list is also the 3rd book in a series, and this one is The Last Ever After by Soman Chainani. This is book 3 in the School for Good and Evil series, and yeah, started reading this series this year, been having a great time, and this one is my favourite by far. I can't say too much about this book specifically, but so much happened in this book, so much character growth. We got introduced to new characters which I just fell in love with, and the stakes were high. It was just a great time. So that's why this is on the list. So the School for Good and Evil is about Agatha and Sophie, and they're taken away from their town and dropped in the School for Good and Evil. But Sophie, who loves fashion and fairy tales, she was convinced that she was going to end up in the School for Good, and that's not the case, and she ends up in the School for Evil instead. And it's Agatha who ends up in the School for Good. So already we're set up with that interesting dynamic of the girls being in a place where they're not necessarily supposed to be, or where they're actually supposed to be, how they make friends, learn magic, learn more about the school, and it's just a fun time, such a fun series. I've been enjoying this one so much, and yeah, this is just the best of the 3 I've read so far. This one was the first one to get 5 stars, and so I had to put this one on the list. Book number 5 is also part of a series. I don't think I would have forgiven myself if I didn't put a Skulduggery Pleasant book on this list, considering it's one of my top 2 favourite series. But yeah, this one wasn't the one that came out this year. This isn't book 15, the final book. This one is Dead or Alive, which is book 14 in the Skulduggery Pleasant series, so the second to last in the series overall. The only reason this one's on the list over the last one is I just found this one so much more high stakes in a way. I just enjoyed it, and the ending just really shocked me, and yeah, it just had more of an impact on me versus book 15, which I still thoroughly enjoyed, still gave 5 stars to. This one was just slightly better for me, and that's why this one is on the list. So I've already talked about it quite a lot on this channel so far, but Skulduggery Pleasant is a fantasy series where you follow Valkyrie Kane and Skulduggery Pleasant, who's a skeleton detective, as they solve murders and crimes and save the world from really big bad things most of the time. Yeah, and this series is just so much fun. It's full of humour and wit and sarcasm. It's just a good time. I've said that already, but yeah, the series is wonderful, and this was the best one that I read this year. Moving on to book number 4, it's actually one of my Fairy Loot books, which is a win because I don't actually read that many of them. So considering I've actually read one and it's one of my favourite books of the year, I'm really chuffed with that. It means the subscription is worth it. And this one is Belladonna by Adalyn Grace, my 4th favourite book of the year. This one was just so fun and wonderful and fantastical, and yeah, we followed death in this one, which was quite cool. I'm just realising now that quite a lot of these books either involve death, necromancy, dark magic, a lot of death and skeletons on my list this year. That seems to be the theme. But anyway, in this one we follow Signa, and when she was a very, very young child, she was in a room full of people who were poisoned and slaughtered, including her mother, who was there as well. But she wasn't killed, she wasn't able to be killed. And we later find out that this is because she has this sort of connection with death. So if she's close to death, she will see death and summon death, and maybe being able to tap into some powers which she shouldn't have, but she can't actually die. So that was basically the setup for this book. So she starts out as an orphan, going from orphan to orphan, going from family home to family home, until she runs out of places to go basically, and ends up at one of the last places living with, I think it's her uncle, and his wife has recently passed away. But because she has the connection with death and spirits and stuff, she finds out that this wife maybe didn't pass away naturally and was maybe poisoned. And so she sets out to solve the murder, and the story goes from there. And I just had such a lovely time reading this book. It was like historical, gothic, fantasy, but not too dark, quite light, because it's still YA. And yeah, I really enjoyed the romance in this one as well. That was super great, and yeah, I'm just so excited to pick up the sequel next year when it finally comes out. So the third book on this list is actually one that I finished this month. So this might just be a bit of I've just finished it so I really love it sort of thing. But I don't think it is. I don't think it would have shifted too much. And this one is Nona the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. This is the third book in the Locked Tomb series. And yeah, this is the one that came out this year. I'm thoroughly enjoying this series so far, and this one was just genius as well. Just like all of the other books, we get introduced to a new character, Nona, and she's just the sweetest, kindest person ever. So it was a joy to follow Nona and her story in this world, while seeing some familiar faces. I can't say too much more about this one really, because it would just be pure spoilers. But yeah, this book was just genius. It was a good time, fun time, and was kind of whimsical while still being super dark and deep in places, which I really, really enjoyed about this one. The next book on this list, my second favourite book of the year, is also from the Locked Tomb series, and this one is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. This is the first book in the series, and this one has definitely been my favourite one so far. I've been wanting to reread this one ever since I finished Nona and just haven't had the time, so I'll probably just reread the three of them before book 4 comes out next year, because that one is hopefully going to be the final one in the series and I can finish another one out. But anyway, this book is, well, yeah, it is about lesbian necromancers in space and is a sci-fi, but it has more of a fantasy feel for it, which is why I loved this one so much. I was really quite nervous going into this one because I don't like sci-fis too much, but yeah, I just got lost in this book so quickly. It was so good. The characters are amazing, especially Gideon. She's my favourite character. She has so much wit and sarcasm, and yeah, she's just so much fun to read from, which is why this book is my favourite. We just get to spend so much more time with Gideon, which is great. But yeah, if you don't know what Gideon the Ninth is about, in this book we follow Gideon as she accompanies Harrowhark, who is her friend. They have a complicated relationship, as Harrow wants to go to the first house, I think it is, to train to become a lictor, which is a more powerful necromancer. Once you attain lictorhood, you get extra powers, you're stronger, you have other abilities and things like this. So she needs to take Gideon with her to be her cavalier, which is kind of like her guard or swordsman sort of thing. And yeah, when they get there, they find out that they have to solve lots of riddles and do lots of trials and stuff, but things start going wrong and murders start happening and dead bodies turn up in the way they're not supposed to. I say not supposed to because yeah, this book is about necromancy and there is a lot of death and skeletons and things in here, so it's to be expected, but these bodies were unexpected, and so they have to also solve out who's killing these people whilst they're trying to like work on their trials and obtain lictorhood anyway. And yeah, it's just a great time. The cast of characters in this book is especially is very, very strong. I love the whole group and the dynamics between the different houses. It's just amazing. And that's why this is my second favourite book of the year. But it was close. This nearly was number one, but really thinking about it, it had to be the next book on this list. So some of you have probably already guessed, but yeah, my favourite book of this year has to be Nestle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is the first ever T. Kingfisher book that I've read, and I will definitely be picking up more because this one was just amazing. This one is an adult fantasy book that reads like a fairy tale. It definitely gave me the vibes that Cerulean Sea didn't get me, so sort of like middle grade for adults, but we definitely have really, really dark themes in this book, and yeah, it's just a great time. So in this one we follow Mara as she sets out to rescue her sister from a marriage to a prince, because the prince is really abusive and not very nice, so she wants to get her sister out of there. But she can't just walk into the palace alone and kill the prince. She's gonna need some help. And so she ends up enlisting a godmother, a grave witch, a demon possessed by a chicken, and an ex-knight, I think it is. And yeah, they basically team up to go and save Mara's sister. And it's the dynamics between this group that I just love. I love the back and forth. The Grave Witch is especially fun. She's quite bitter and snarky, and I love her. The chicken is amazing, and the main reason why I picked this book up, and I wasn't disappointed. And yeah, we basically just follow them on a little adventure as they reach the castle and then working out a way to take down the prince. And yeah, it's just a great time. It's so cozy and dark, which are the vibes that I've been going for a lot recently this year. And yeah, if you haven't picked it up already, I would definitely recommend it. It's also a really short book. How many pages? This one's just over 300 pages. So if you're a fan of dark, whimsical fantasies, pick this one up. So that was it. Those were my top 10 books of 2022. Let me know down below if you've read any of these. I would love to hear your thoughts. Or let me know if you think you're going to pick one of these up. I would love to urge you on. These books have been amazing, and I can't wait to see what books I'm going to be reading in 2023. I have absolutely no idea apart from handful. So yeah, that was it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and you will enjoy the rest of 2022, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year. Have a good day. Bye.